Okay, I need you to stay with me on this one because it sounds crazy at first. A few weeks ago, a clip of Jim Carrey popped up from a public appearance, and millions of people immediately said something looked wrong.
This is not Jim Carrey. It reminds me of this, and this, and this, and this, and this.
The way he smiled, the way he moved his hands, even the way he laughed felt slightly off.
I cannot deal with fucking conspiracy theories about Jim Carrey anymore. It's crazy. People are insane.
People started comparing it to older footage frame by frame, and the internet turned into a full crime scene investigation. But here is where it gets wild. When someone claiming to be a Hollywood insider weighed in, they didn't deny it.
And dreaming up my life as it was going to be, and I was going to be one of the biggest actors in the world.
They said the truth was even stranger than a body double. So, before we get into the really wild stuff, you need to understand why people even started paying attention in the first place. Because this didn't come out of nowhere. Jim Carrey spent 3 decades building one of the most recognizable careers in all of entertainment. We are talking about a man who went from doing impressions on In Living Color to becoming the highest paid actor in Hollywood almost overnight.
Call optical illusions. Tell them I need new frames. They know what kind I like.
Ace Ventura made him a household name in 1994. The Mask came out that same year, then Dumb and Dumber. Suddenly, Jim Carrey was the biggest comedy star on the planet, and it was not just the movies. It was how he moved, those rubbery facial expressions, the unpredictable improvisation, the almost cartoon-like way he threw his entire body into every single moment. You could spot Jim Carrey from across a crowded room without even hearing his voice. He was making $20 million per film at his peak, and studios were lining up to pay it because nobody else on earth could do what he did. And that is the part that makes the body double theory actually interesting. Carrey was not just a comedian. He proved he had serious range with The Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The man had layers that audiences were still discovering after 20 years. So, when fans say they know Jim Carrey's mannerisms inside and out, they are not exaggerating. This is someone whose physical style was studied, imitated, and celebrated for an entire generation. That is exactly why these new clips set off alarm bells. Fans who had been watching this man for 30 years suddenly felt like something was not lining up, and once that feeling spread, it spread fast. One viral post compared footage from a classic interview to a recent red carpet appearance, and the differences jumped off the screen. The posture was different. The timing felt slower. The laugh sounded close, but not quite right. Another video zoomed in on facial features, claiming the jawline and cheek structure had shifted in ways that aging alone could not explain. Plenty of people brushed it off at first. Bad lighting, a weird camera angle, maybe just a long day. But the comparisons kept coming, and each one made it harder to look away. Okay, but this is the thing that turned a few suspicious clips into a full-blown internet investigation. Right around the time this footage started circulating, a few entertainment insiders started whispering something that, honestly,
every fake news is saying you are not Jim Carrey. That's true or not, please?
Nobody outside the industry ever really thinks about. They said Hollywood uses doubles for a lot more than just stunt scenes. Scheduling conflicts, security concerns, complicated production timelines. And sometimes, if you listen to people who have actually worked in celebrity management, a star's team will find creative ways to maintain public visibility even when the actual person is unavailable or simply does not want to show up. Not just the idea that doubles exist, because of course they do, but the idea that their use might extend beyond movie sets and into carefully managed public appearances. Once that idea was out there, people could not put it back in the box. The body double theory went from a funny meme to a real conversation almost overnight. And just when the speculation was reaching a fever pitch, a statement connected to the situation appeared online. Now you would think that would calm everybody down, right? Wrong. It made everything 10 times worse. When the statement first surfaced, fans expected a clean shutdown. Something like, "This is ridiculous. Here is Jim Carrey himself telling you it's ridiculous." But that is not what happened. Instead, the response simply said that Jim Carrey was doing well and focusing on his personal life and creative projects. There was no direct denial, and there was absolutely no explanation for the footage people were picking apart frame by frame. And you know how the internet works. The second something feels vague, people start digging even deeper. Within hours, side-by-side comparisons flooded every social media platform. Old clips showed that chaotic energy people associate with Carrey. New clips showed someone noticeably calmer, more controlled, almost like someone carefully mimicking his mannerisms, instead of actually living inside them. Those trademark exaggerated eyebrow movements appeared slightly delayed.
He has different eyes now. It looks like his eye color totally changed from brown to green.
The laugh was similar, but something about the rhythm was just a tiny bit off, and this is where it gets really messy. Longtime fans said the energy itself felt different, like the unpredictable spark that made him famous had been dialed down to something safe and rehearsed. But hold on, because the detective work did not stop there. People started digging through years of older interviews and public appearances, trying to pinpoint the exact moment things started to feel different. And a curious timeline started forming. Right around the time Carrey stepped away from major Hollywood projects and began talking publicly about painting and personal reflection, his public appearances became increasingly rare. When he did show up, it was usually a brief, tightly controlled media appearance. On its own, that is not unusual. But then, viewers noticed something else that had completely flown under the radar. Subtle variations between different appearances that were hard to explain with just lighting or aging. One clip showed him speaking with his familiar, energetic rhythm. Another showed slightly slower reactions, almost like someone carefully matching a performance style rather than just being themselves. Social media detectives started pointing out jawline differences, changes around the ears, and even the way his shoulders moved when he laughed. Skeptics quickly pointed out that camera lenses, makeup, and natural aging can dramatically change how someone looks on screen. And that is absolutely true. But the detail that kept the fire burning was this. That mysterious insider used the phrase managed visibility, a term from celebrity PR about controlling how and when a star appears in public. That phrase alone sent thousands of people down a brand new rabbit hole. And just when the debate was at its absolute loudest, a new clip surfaced that pushed the entire conversation into overdrive. It came from a public event where Carrey briefly stopped to greet fans. At first, nothing seemed off, but then, right in the middle of a sentence, he paused for a split second, glanced sideways towards someone off camera, and shifted the tone of his voice before continuing. Now, on its own, that could mean absolutely nothing. Maybe he lost his train of thought, but once the clip went viral, viewers started slowing it down and analyzing every frame. Some claimed the facial movement during the pause looked unnatural, like someone briefly breaking character. Others said the reaction looked like someone waiting for direction before continuing. One breakdown video got over 10 million views in 2 days. And just like that, the body double theory roared back to life louder than ever. What made this clip different from the others was simple. Every previous piece of evidence could be explained away. Lighting, camera angles, aging, but this one felt behavioral, not just physical. It felt like a mask slipping, and for millions of viewers, that was the detail that tipped them from curious to genuinely suspicious. Journalists reached out to Carrey's representatives again and got another carefully worded non-answer about personal life and creative pursuits. For some people, that was perfectly reasonable. For others, the vagueness felt deliberate. That is when the internet truly split into two camps. One side said the whole thing was classic internet overanalysis. Jim Carrey is just a man in his 60s who does not feel like performing for cameras the way he did at 30. The other side insisted something did not add up. They pointed to the increasingly rare appearances, the philosophical comments about fame, and the vague nature of every official response. Then a handful of veteran entertainment journalists who have covered Carrey's career for decades weighed in, and what they said shifted the conversation in a direction nobody expected. They said the real explanation might be far less dramatic than the internet wanted it to be. Over the past several years, Jim Carrey himself has openly talked about stepping away from fame. He spoke about how performing at that level for decades took a real toll on him. He talked about discovering painting and finding peace in a quieter life. And these were not casual comments. In one sit-down interview that went viral, he described walking red carpets as feeling like he was wearing a costume of a person he used to be. He said the public image of Jim Carrey had become something entirely separate from who he actually was. At the time, people took that as philosophical commentary about celebrity. But now, rewatching those moments with fresh eyes, the meaning hit completely differently. It goes even deeper than that. Carrey has talked openly about struggling with depression, about questioning success, and about reaching a point where the fame and the $20 million paychecks just stopped feeling like enough. He started painting seriously, not as a hobby, but as a creative pursuit that he said saved him. He built a full art studio in his home and spent entire days on pieces that had nothing to do with Hollywood. People close to him said he seemed at peace for the first time in years, but that he also looked and sounded noticeably different from the explosive performer the world remembered. What fans might actually be seeing in these recent appearances is not a replacement. It is simply a different version of a man who spent 30 years performing at maximum intensity for the entire world. When someone steps away from that kind of energy, of course they are going to look and feel different on camera. The spark that people remember was the spark of performance. And Jim Carrey has been telling us very directly that he is done performing, but the twist that keeps this story so fascinating is simple. The internet does not work on patience or nuance. Once a theory catches fire, it grows way beyond whatever evidence actually started it. A few unusual clips, a vague official statement, and suddenly millions of people are analyzing facial expressions like crime scene investigators. And honestly, you cannot entirely blame them. Hollywood has a long history of secrets and carefully controlled public narratives. A little bit of suspicion is practically built into the relationship between celebrities and the people who follow them. This is not the first time something like this has happened either. Remember when fans were convinced Avril Lavigne had been replaced by a lookalike named Melissa? Or the Paul McCartney Paul is dead theory from the late 1960s, where fans played Beatles albums backward looking for hidden messages. The details change, but the pattern is always the same. A beloved public figure acts slightly different, and the audience starts building a story to explain why. It is not stupidity. It is a very human response to feeling like something you trusted has changed without warning. So the bigger story here might not be about whether Jim Carrey has a body double at all. It might be about what happens when a massive celebrity simply decides to change, and the public is not ready to accept it. One short clip can turn into a global mystery overnight. A vague PR statement can fuel a million conspiracy theories. And the next time a famous face shows up, looking even slightly different from what we remember, millions of viewers will start asking questions all over again.